This time around, we're going to take a look at what I think are Microsoft 365's top 10 hidden features that you must know. So stick around. You might learn something here. Greetings, my fellow YouTubers. Welcome back to the channel. Andy Malone, Microsoft MVP, as well as a Microsoft certified trainer. Firstly, a very happy new year to you and welcome back. It's so nice to see you. Now, this time around, I thought we'd take a look at Microsoft 365's and what I think are Microsoft's top 10 hidden secrets that are buried kind of within Microsoft 365. Some of them in fairly new features, some of them are not. Some of them are just kind of in obscure places where you think, why did nobody tell me where that was? So without further ado, I think it's time to learn something, don't you? Now, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please go ahead, click on the subscribe button, ring that bell, and you won't miss out on the good stuff in the future. And if you hit that big like button and give me a thumbs up, it would really help out my channel. Okay, and of course, I love your comments, questions, and feedback, so just pop them down below, and I'll do my best to answer them for you. All right, so I think it's time for some demos. So let's have a look at those top 10 secrets. Okay, coming in at number 10, you can go into the Admin Center in Microsoft 365. If you go into Settings and come into Organizational Settings, and here you'll find the daily briefing email from Microsoft Viva. But this particular feature is fantastic at keeping your users up to date with exactly what's happening that day. So it gives them a list of their schedules, their calendar entries, and any tasks that they have to do for the day. So all you need to do, and you can see it's on by default, let people in your organization receive a daily briefing email. Just a little note here, the Microsoft product groups love feedback and they really want to make it better for you. So when you get an opportunity like this to give them feedback, they really do appreciate it. And also, if you allow them to come back to you, often it's somebody from the product group. It's quite useful. So number 10, the briefing from Microsoft Viva. Okay, so number 9 is I think one of the most important ones. I'm sure we've all seen the open authentication approvals. So when you open up an app or log into a website, it says, do you want to grant approval based on behalf of the company? And the user normally just clicks on yes. Now, one of the nice things about Microsoft 365 is you can actually control that. So if you go into user consent for apps, you can actually do this in one of two places. And the first of them is in here in the settings in Microsoft 365. Let users provide consent when apps require access to your organization data. Now, although this is quite nice, it's just a single setting, and for the most part, for most companies, I think it would be pretty much okay. However, if you want something a little bit more, I would highly recommend going into Azure Active Directory. And in Azure Active Directory, I would come into Enterprise Applications, and here you can see that you've got consent and permissions. And here, from an admin perspective, you have a lot more granularity and control. So for example, here, you can say user consent for applications, do not allow user consent. In other words, if a user tries to install a third-party application and it prompts the user to approve it, then you're basically saying here only certain users, perhaps even administrators, can do this. You can also do consent for only specific apps or selected permissions for applications that have been approved. Or you can just say allow user consent for all apps. And again, this is probably the weakest one. So the strongest one here is do not allow user consent, but an administrator can be required to authenticate at any time. Now, if I just scroll down, one really cool feature that you have in Azure Active Directory is the fact that you can do it based on group owner consent. Remember, groups are teams and teams are groups. So if you've not seen my Microsoft 365 groups video or Teams video, I'd go off and take a look at that right now. But this is particularly useful. Again, do you want to allow group owners consent? And these can obviously go ahead and say, yes, we accept that open authentication permission. So again, you've got these three different settings here. Okay, so coming in quickly at number 8, I'm going to scroll down in the organizational settings area in services, and I'm going to come into SharePoint. Now, this is absolutely critical. This is, you can choose how users share content within SharePoint sites and also OneDrive within your organization. And this is so important because it controls the entire master tenant settings. So you have 4 options here. So the default is the most restrictive. So only people within your organization. So no external sharing allowed whatsoever. Existing guests. That means that administrators must have gone ahead and created guest accounts in Azure Active Directory or in Microsoft 365. All right. So the key thing is the guest must exist already. Now, if you've not seen that video, then go ahead. There is a link in my description, and that will take you through to the guests video, which is on my YouTube channel, and you can go ahead and see exactly how to do that. We also have new and existing guests. So users must sign in and provide a verification code. Again, fairly new. This means that any guests that have been pre-created along with guests that have been invited. So if you are a group owner, for example, in Microsoft Teams or in Microsoft 365 groups, and you're an administrator, then you can go ahead and, of course, and invite guests into the company, or invite sharing, I should say. Anyone, this is the least restrictive. So basically anyone can share files and folders using links that don't require any form of sign-in. And now be very careful with this one because this is essentially an anonymous link. So it basically means if I give you a link that requires no username and password, there is nothing to stop you from resharing that link, and then I would very quickly lose control. Okay, so coming in at number 7, and one of, I think, really a super important feature, you can find it in the security and privacy options, and this, of course, is the customer lockbox. Now, unfortunately, the downside of customer lockbox is that it's only available in the premium plans, such as the E5 plan. And basically what this means is when you call up Microsoft as a regular Microsoft 365 admin, basically an engineer can get direct access to your data and your portal without your permission. But by using this option here, the user that goes into what we call the approval, rather goes into something called the customer lockbox system at Microsoft. And basically, when the engineer attempts to access your content, the approval needs to be approved by the engineer's manager or supervisor. Then a second stage of approval then comes back to you, the person who's requesting it. And what happens then is once that's approved, the user, or the engineer rather, gets a just-in-time access to your data. So by doing that, that means that they can help you, they get access to your data, but at the end of the job, when they close the ticket, they lose access completely. Now, you'll notice here it talks about access approvals. Now, this can be found in a number of places. You can either find this by going into roles in Microsoft 365, or I actually prefer going into Azure Active Directory. And in Azure Active Directory here, if I go into roles and administrators, you can then go in and locate the customer lockbox administrator role, which in this case is here. And what you can then do is simply go in here and you can then add an assignment. So perhaps a manager or a junior admin who you're going to allocate with that right to approve the customer lockbox requests. So that's a really nice feature, the customer lockbox. For my next option, I'm going to come down into organization settings. I'm going to go into security and privacy. And one of my favorite features at the moment is something called privileged access. Now, there's nothing worse than giving or having to give full administrator access to a user who perhaps doesn't really need it. So what we now have is we have something called privileged access. And privileged access you can assign to a specific group of users or a specific team, for example. So for example here, I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to go, I've got a group here called the Oslo head office group. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'll quickly save that. And what I want to do is obviously now that I've chosen a default approval group, what I want to do is go ahead and create some access. Now you can see I'm getting a little error here. It's because I've not gone ahead and actually created the requests yet. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to go ahead and create a policy. So the policy can be based on a specific task, an admin task, an admin role, or an admin role group. So for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to choose a task and I'm going to say, hey, the task is in Microsoft Exchange. Now, the problem with a regular administrator is that they would have access to everything. So what I'm doing here is I'm basically saying, hey, okay, I want to create a task for Microsoft Exchange, which will just give a user, for example, the ability to, let's say, add a mailbox folder permission. All right. And you can see the approval type. I can say, hey, is this going to be a manual approval or is it going to be auto approved? Now, if you choose manual, you can then go into the approval group here and I can say, hey, I've got a user group here called, let's say, my Oslo head office. All right. And I now click on create and I've now created a policy, which is what we call a privileged access policy. Very cool feature. So coming in at number 5 is one of my favorite admin features. This is SSPR, or self-service password reset. For this to work, you can simply come into organizational settings, go into security and privacy, and if you scroll down, you will see self-service password reset. And what this means is essentially the user can then go into their own user settings here in any of the Microsoft portals, and they can simply go in and reset their own cloud password. For this to work, you need to do this in Microsoft Azure, but this link will quickly take you across here. Now, please note that if you just have a cloud-based user, then this is free of charge. Users can do this absolutely free. But if you're in Azure Active Directory and you're in hybrid mode with an on-premises server, then this is a premium feature. So just be aware of that. Okay, so you need to have a premium license. So for this to work, essentially what you do is you enable it either for all users or just for selected users. So in this case, what we have is we have a special group called the SSPR, or Self-Service Password Reset Security Group, and you simply just go in here, add the users or groups that you want to add in, click on select, and that's it, and then just save. And that's all there is to it. Your users will then be able to go in and reset their own passwords. Coming in at number 4 is the custom help desk. Now, I don't know about you, but if you've ever tried to put in a call to Microsoft, sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not so great. However, if you are a consultant and you look after your own customers, let's say, for example, you're a small business, this is awesome. So it means that when your customers go in and ask for Microsoft support, the support request comes to you. Absolutely awesome, and it will make you money as well. So for this to work, you simply come down into settings, go into organizational settings, and you go up here to the organizational profile. Here in the organizational profile, you'll find the help desk information, and simply click the checkbox and fill in your information and your URL link. And that's it. Your users will then come to you. How cool is that? So coming in at number 3 is integrated apps. So here I am in Microsoft 365, and as a user, of course, I'm in the portal. Now, of course, up here, this looks like a little waffle, but this is where all our apps sit. And you can see that we've got all our nice Microsoft apps here. And on top of that, you've got all apps. You can also use this little add-ins option down here. Now, if you can't see that, you can also see the little 4 boxes down here on the bottom left, and this says all apps. So I can simply click onto this, and this doesn't just include Microsoft 365 apps, but also any apps that have been deployed through Azure Active Directory Enterprise applications. So for example, things like line of business applications. You can see I've got things like Zoom and Yammer and LinkedIn and things like that here. Now, of course, you know, who do you want to be able to install applications? Is it just users, or do you want it to be more admin based? Well, this is really useful. So integrated apps, for example, if it's the user's own apps and things like that, this is kind of cool. You can go into the admin center, again, into organizational settings, and in the services tab, we have user owned and services, apps and services. And you can actually choose here, let users access the Office store, and also users start trials on behalf of your organization. So that means in the billing section, they can trials. Now, again, you may not want that. So again, you can untick that checkbox, but certainly let users access the store to deploy apps themselves. The other option here is let users auto-claim licenses the very first time that they sign in. So again, it just kind of takes the burden, if you will, off administrators. But that's a nice feature. That's coming in at number 3, and the integrated apps. We're almost there, and coming in at number 2 are the hidden admin centers. I know, you're an administrator, you know it all. You've been to every single admin center, right? Wrong. Okay, you will be surprised at how many secret admin places there are in Microsoft 365. So for this, the first thing, well, first of all, you've got the core admin centers, security, compliance, endpoint manager, aka Intune, Azure Active Directory, Exchange, SharePoint, Teams. You know all of those ones. But check it out down here. We have all admin centers here, and you have other admin centers. So things like Power Apps, Power Automate, Office Configuration Admin Center. So you can actually configure or do an automated configuration for your Microsoft users and deploy policies for both Microsoft Office policies, but also configure device configurations as well. This is so cool. Okay, so again, you can create policies for devices and also the software to deploy that stuff out. So that's really nice. Other things that we've got as well, if I come into, let's say, you've got things like Power Automate, you've got search, security. One of my favorite ones is Microsoft Stream. Now, Microsoft Stream, of course, is Microsoft's media platform. So if let's say I come into the All Apps area here, and I scroll down, and I come in and open up Microsoft Stream. I know you probably use Microsoft Stream to create live broadcasts as part of Microsoft Teams, or to upload your videos and share content. It's a fantastic platform. But where's the administration center? The answer is it's right up here. So you can switch into admin mode here. You can click on the little gear icon, but check it out, admin settings. I can go into the admin settings here, and there is a hidden administration center here. Okay, and you can manage all aspects of streaming, video streaming, and groups, and manage any video content that you've uploaded, how long you want to keep the content for, and so on. So that is the Streams admin center. So definitely check out some of these additional admin centers. And the cool thing is that even if I go into, let's say, a well-known admin center. So if I go into, let's say, just come back here. If I go into the Microsoft 365 standard admin center here, and if I go into, let's say, security, again, you might think you know it all. You might think you know all the settings for security. But actually, you'd be surprised. So if I scroll down here, I'll just close that down. And if I scroll down, what I'm noticing is many more of these sites now have a gear icon and settings, and within the admin center itself is a whole new set of admin tools. So for example, you can control things like Identity Manager. So Microsoft Defender for Identity is all managed in its own little sub portal admin center. So definitely check out those. Finally, coming in at number 1 is Andy, how do I get more stuff for free? Well, obviously we know about the Microsoft 365 licenses, and you can assign the licenses in active users here in Microsoft 365. And of course I can go into Adele here, and you have the licenses and apps tab. So of course you only pay for a license when you actually assign it. Now, the other thing that you should also be aware of is when you assign a license, be careful not to assign a license to administrators. Administrators do not need a license. In fact, you're wasting your license if you assign it to an administrator. All right, so that's the first thing. Now, the other thing is if you want kind of free stuff, there's a number of places to do this. So first up, in Microsoft 365, I can go into all applications, and you can go into the App Store at the bottom here. So there are all kinds of things to get for free. So things like add emails, There is also within here, there's the all apps, a whole bunch of tips and tricks that you can get. And over here, there's an army of add-ins that you can get. Many of these are for free. Some of them are paid, but many of them are for free of charge. So again, these are fantastic add-ons that you can use. Now, in addition to that, in the admin center, if you go into billing, and if you have the rights to do this, of course, and click on purchase services, you can see that you've got all the different categories here that you can use. And you can see that you can get stuff. Look at this, advanced communication. You're getting 6 months for free here. That's 6 months even and as a trial. So, you know, take advantage of many of these free offers. Another thing as well is, you know, obviously the high-end kind of licenses like the E5 include all the security, the voice capabilities of Microsoft Teams. You've got all the security stuff. The question is, do I really need all of that stuff? Often it's a bit like buying a slightly cheaper rail ticket. You can actually get cheaper options. So if you purchased an E3, for example, and added on voice, then it'll work out cheaper. Other things that you can do here, you can also search for free stuff. Just search for free. And look, you get things like Power BI. There's a whole bunch of add-ons here. There's like a whole bunch of business apps here as well, including, you know, the fantastic Microsoft Bookings, which is absolutely awesome. So you can just simply click on details and you can add these things in for free. So there are definitely free versions that you should really want to take advantage of. So there you have it, my top 10 hidden features within Microsoft 365. I really hope you enjoyed that, and thanks so much for viewing. Now, if you've not subscribed, go ahead, click on the subscribe button, ring the bell, and you won't miss out on the good stuff in the future. And as always, I love your comments, questions, and feedback. So just pop those down below, and I'll do my best to answer them for you. All right, so until next time, you stay safe and take care, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Hey, thanks so much for dropping by today. Here's a couple of videos that you may enjoy, and while you're here, go ahead, click on the subscribe button and you won't miss out.